everyone, welcome back to another lovely episode. So some new advancements in my life. I'm currently bald and working on a lot of film projects, and this kind of caused me to push back the ZV1F review because I kind of just got really busy. So today I just wanted to make a quick video going over my user experience with the Sony ZV1F as a filmmaker and really going over like what's good, what's bad, and not really jumping into all the technicalities and different parts and features and just saying a bunch of letters and numbers. I'm really just going to give you a real life honest review. So if you're looking for a more professional style review, definitely would not recommend this. And the main reason is I really just wanted a camera to take with me pretty much wherever I wanted to go to film something or to take pictures. I always found it kind of a nuisance having a camera with a bigger lens on it, trying to like take it anywhere or just trying to have it on you when you go somewhere, because you kind of always got to carry it and you really don't have a chance to like put it in your pocket to not be walking around with the camera all day. But this camera kind of gave me the opportunity to be able to walk around with it in my pocket, and if I find something I want to film, I'm kind of able to do it. This camera literally weighs like 0.25 grams. I'll put the exact number, but it's pretty light. It's made of plastic pretty much. Every part in this camera is plastic. I really don't know if there's anything that's metal besides maybe where the lens is. Everything else is pretty plasticky. It does feel like a toy, so I really would not recommend this camera if you're looking for a metal body Sony camera like the A7s or the A6400s. You're gonna think this camera is a toy. And I feel like that's how Sony really is getting this camera to be $500 and not way more expensive like the ZV1 or the ZV-E10. Is basically the materials. They kind of made this camera out of paper mache, so I really wouldn't drop this camera, but I feel like it's fun. I mean, yeah, the camera is pretty light and all the buttons kind of do creak a little bit if you press them a little too hard. So, I mean, that's really up to you if you want the better build quality or the nicer image for the money. I feel like that's the main thing with this camera, is you're really sacrificing build quality, and you really got to be careful with this camera, because I really would not trust this camera to fall more than like 3 inches out of my hand. I can see this camera breaking just from the wind picking up at a reasonable speed. Now, that is not to say this camera is exactly horrible, and I do feel like this camera has its features that make it really usable for everybody. I just feel like if you are looking for a more premium looking camera, this is definitely not going to suit you. So I'll go ahead and talk about the annoying things I've found on the camera and the stuff that I really don't find that awesome. So the first thing I will say that is pretty terrible is the mic is on the other side of the camera from the hot shoe mount. So if you are using a Rode wireless go-to, you're gonna have a really awkward like cable run across your camera, and I found it just to be kind of annoying, but I will figure out something to make that a better setup. The zoom rocker is quite horrendous. There's been many times where I've been trying to film something, I accidentally hit that, and then it's a clear image zoom, so your image kind of looks like shit after you zoom in, so it's really just horrible. This camera only looks good at 20 millimeters. I really would not recommend zooming in. I did zoom in on that last video I uploaded, and you can definitely see the grain a lot more in the shots that I did zoom in on. Also, the on and off button and the SQ video photo mode buttons are literally the exact same button, and they're 1 millimeter apart from each other. So there's already been about 50 instances where I've turned off the camera trying to change the modes or vice versa. I really feel like that was a horrible design choice. I'm not a big fan of it. And it also doesn't help that the record button is within reaching distance. I mean, I really have not hit the record button on accident, but I'm sure it will happen eventually. I feel like the button layout is a little cramped on top. I feel like everything is a little bit too close, but I mean, it is a small camera, so you kind of have to have it too close. Also, the shutter button is pretty flat. It's not really convex at all, so you don't really get a haptic feedback whenever you're touching it. You kind of got to push it in to really feel any kind of autofocus or anything like that. You also do have the background defocus like on the ZV-E10, and I think it's kind of a gimmick. I really don't use it. I kind of found it to be a gimmick though, because it's not really usable, because your shutter speeds just get out of whack and everything just kind of looks terrible if you're trying to go for a cinematic look. To compensate that, I did get a nice variable ND filter, and I found this to literally be the saving grace of this camera. I found it to be unusable without this, to be honest with you. This camera obviously isn't as advanced as the other Sony cameras, so if you are going to shoot in automatic mode or really film outside in general, this camera is going to be overblown a lot, so I would recommend getting an ND filter. You also don't have a real hot shoe, it's a cold shoe mount, so if you're using those Sony microphones or any kind of microphone that goes through there, it's not gonna work. Also, flashes won't work either. So I've definitely said a lot of negative things about this camera, and I really hope I haven't scared you off yet to this point, but I had to say those things because they are true, and there are things you're gonna have to deal with this camera. This camera is definitely not meant for everybody, and there are going to be people who hate this camera, and that's fine. But I feel like for the budget filmmaker, this is the perfect camera, and here are a few reasons why. So under the positives of the camera, I just find the camera to be very mobile, versatile. I can really pull this out anywhere and get shots, and I really never have to even think about how my camera is going to be in my pocket or backpack. I kind of just slide it anywhere. It's so small and convenient that you really don't need a set carrying case to have this camera with you. It is very nice just being able to pull out some really good video quality from your pocket and not having to unbox a camera bag and get all your shit out of there, set it up, and you know, it's a whole hassle. This camera kind of takes all that away. This camera features a lot of Sony's picture profiles like S-Log3, S-Log2, Cinetone, HLG. It's a pretty versatile setup. I was actually quite surprised when they did include this on the camera because most of the time people really don't expect these features in a budget YouTuber camera, which this is marketed as. You also do get access to Sony's brand new menu system, and it is pretty amazing compared to the old one. I just felt like a feeble old man trying to navigate the old one, and I never really felt confident trying to do anything on my ZV-E10. I kind of hate the menu system on this camera, to be honest with you. I love the image quality off this camera, but the menu system does suck, and there are a lot of settings I really just don't change because it's such a hassle trying to find. Sony really did a good job with the new menu system, and it's a lot like my 5D Classic where it's just an up and down orientation, and that's really what I prefer. It is really nice navigating the new Sony menu system, and I think it honestly is a great way to get into that. You do have a mic port and a USB-C, surprisingly, and also it does take mini HDMI. You really can make this camera a webcam in case you're trying to do some reviews or, you know, any kind of talking head video. Another great thing about this camera are pretty much all the parts are extremely cheap. I got this small rig battery grip for 20 bucks, and I got the ND filter for 20 bucks. Most extra accessories for cameras are like really expensive, and they usually never get used. And it's nice to see that Sony actually made these affordable and they're not hunks of junk. So I actually do have a video coming out about the ZV1F pretty soon that I'm very excited to show you guys, and it does include the ZV-E10, so pretty excited to get those out to y'all, but I had to get this video done because I feel like this camera just needs more exposure in general. I feel like it kind of just is saw as a toy or a vlogger's camera, or you know, just really something that people who don't know what they're doing would use. And I feel like if you know what you're doing, you can get a lot of results out of this.